What's up, guys? Happy Pretendependence Day. In case you don't know why I would call it that, allow me to elucidate. I honestly, I mean, I'm not saying that the Revolutionary War didn't happen at all. I'm not saying anything quite of that magnitude, but let's review. And I've always felt like they tell you the story when you're a little kid, so that you don't really ask any questions. You don't think about it too deeply. So the story that they give us as kids is that the British Empire, who at the time was the most powerful entity in the world, empire, had 13 colonies that were divided against each other. And there's this old magical rule that if a person's will is divided, they cannot hope to influence their environment sufficiently in order to affect change in conformity with their will. And the same, whatever rules apply to the microcosm apply to a macrocosm. So if a nation is at civil war, it is in no condition to defend itself against enemies, and certainly not to invade other countries. And so the story is that even though these colonies were divided against each other, so there's all kinds of betrayal and treachery, and we have the largest empire in the history of the world, I think, definitely the most powerful at the time, with a tremendous number of allies all around Europe. You know, could have called on Spain, I think, and definitely France. You know, they had homies. They had a crew much longer than ours, and money much longer than ours, and cannons much stronger than ours. And so the story that they give us is that the British Empire lost because they had bad martial strategy. Now, this strategy pretty much consisted of standing in rows while the rebel Americans hid behind rocks and stumps and trees and picked them off like flies, because they had to stand there and wait until they were told to shoot. So you have a scattered group of unorganized, relatively unorganized, disorganized people that are divided, that somehow managed to defeat the armies of an empire that apparently has the stupidest martial strategy in the history of military. It makes no sense. It's the stupidest fucking story I think I've ever heard in my entire life. And so, I mean, we're being asked to believe that they just stood around and let themselves get shot, and that they, despite their tremendous power, they couldn't just rally their allies and come and squash this little rebellion of. So I've just never bought it, you know, and you know, beyond the fact that the historical version of the story doesn't really make any sense, there's also the fact that we are still governed in the United States by the same group of people. For example, George Bush Jr. was it Tony Blair's second cousin. Even Obama was related to some of the European royalty. I think I read that almost, it's like 40 of them or something can be traced back to Charlemagne. So the reality is, and you know, this isn't conspiracy theory, this is all provable, you know, aside from the fact that, you know, the Masons are a real thing, regardless of what conjecture there might be out there in the world. They are a real thing, and they do belong to the same club. So, I mean, there's just so many. Okay, here's another element of this that has always made me question independence in the United States. After they set up the early government, and they signed the Bill of Rights, almost all of the people that signed it went back to work for Parliament. That's also a matter of historical record. There's a really great book, I think his name was Howard Zinn, called A People's History of the United States, and it gets into some of this. But I think the reality is that there never really was a break from the British Empire. The United States has always been basically owned and operated by the crown. And I mean, if you look around the world, you have Australia and Canada, and I mean, how much of the planet was overtly run by this empire? So, I mean, maybe you could suggest that they had stretched their resources too thin and they were trying to rule the whole planet, and somehow, I think that the United States, the Revolutionary War, it's all a farce. It's the stupidest fucking story I've ever heard in my life, and it's just not, it's not real. It was never real. So, I said I was gonna play this like 18-minute Grateful Dead song solo, which I'm still sick as hell. I might even have COVID. I don't really know. I've been sick for weeks. But I kept saying that I was gonna do this improvisational live stream, and I haven't gotten around to it. So I thought it might be cool to at least play one song. And I'm still on the fence as to if I was to attempt the entirety of Terrapin Station. You guys let me know in the chat if you're Deadheads and if that's what you tuned in for. I'll give it a go. I might even play an electric solo, and I'm planning on still doing that on the 6th, so tune in for that. Geez, guys. So, okay. So let's start with the idea of independence and homogenization. And, I mean, it feels so ironic to me to be talking about independence on, or to, celebrate Independence Day when it just seems like such a farce, not just from a historical perspective, but I mean, we're increasingly dependent upon the government. They're coming up with new reasons to lock down the population, which, I mean, if you're one of those people that just hangs up the phone when somebody mentions conspiracies, so am I for the most part, but we've been locked down for the first time in my lifetime recently, and now they're coming up with another reason, like only a year later, to lock us down again for the first time ever. I mean, it's since 1914 at least, or whatever, the weather. And I understand the weather's brutal and dangerous and crazy out there, but I mean, seriously, like, they're talking about weather lockdowns now. So they have like multiple justifications for locking the planet down and keeping everyone in their house. I mean, what's up, Charles, man? It's good to see you there. Yeah, honestly, one of the only reasons I was going to play that song is that it's just easy to sing, and I'm really sick, man. It's been scary, honestly. But I want to talk about deep metaphysics, and this is something that I have talked about on this channel before, and I kind of wish I had just plunged right into this, because it's really interesting. I hope I can do it justice, explaining it, because it's definitely sort of difficult, and it is actually, this is hard to explain. I mean, I always had this sort of affinity for Luciferian aesthetic. I was always kind of fascinated with it. I've never been particularly interested in the dark side. I'm actually kind of a prude, if anything. I mean, I would never harm an animal. I take spiders outside and let them go. It's got nothing to do with that. But I always felt this kind of like attraction or resonance. And I grew up in a very Christian area, and they didn't like me because I was very vocal. And in the South, in that time, if you had to pretend like you were racist or you would get beat up, really. It's kind of a crazy thing. It's like the opposite of the way our mainstream culture is now. In my neighborhood, if you admitted that you didn't have a problem with black people, you might get jumped, it was almost like prison, where they're just forcing the ideology on you, So at any rate, so some of my attraction to that, like, Luciferian or satanic aesthetic might have come from just rebelling against Christianity. But as I got older, I discovered that there was something much deeper to it, which is like for example, the Jungian archetype of Lucifer is that it is the Promethean urge in consciousness to act as a hollow tube to bring down fire from heaven, and to try to illuminate people and to attain a state of higher consciousness to steal or to storm heaven and steal secrets by violence if necessary. So this Promethean thing, and what interested in me even more about Jung's Luciferian version, or his version of the archetype in consciousness, was that it was interested in the collective well-being, which has always been a drive of mine. And speaking of the Grateful Dead, who are extremely Luciferian, I know a lot of deadheads would hate to hear that, but it's absolutely true, at least in the Jungian archetype of consciousness sense. And an example of that is how they operated. There was no one officially in charge. While it may have been true that Jerry Garcia was, he was able to overrule the collective. So, for example, if the band had a meeting, the janitor was welcome to come. Anyone that worked for the organization could come. All right, man. Yeah, I'll do the Terrapin thing in a minute. I want to talk this metaphysics for a second, and then I'm gonna have to get some water, and then I'll play the 18-minute Terrapin. I don't mind making a fool of myself if that's what it takes. But okay, so where am I going with this? This is gonna be good. So let me maintain my focus for a minute. So the point of it is that everyone had equal say, except it is true that the janitor literally vetoed signing a contract with Warner Brothers one year. Like, they really actually meant it. Everyone in the organization had the same voice. So, a janitor had equal voting power to a drummer. But if Garcia wanted to, he could just overrule the whole organization. Even if everyone was opposed to him, he would just so it wasn't entirely that way. But aside from just the decision-making process, it was decentralized to the extent that the wages, the employees were paid exponentially more than any other band's people. The roadies were paid, as an example, $250,000 a year at a time when Aerosmith was paying their roadies $9 an hour. And the argument against this kind of almost socialist, it's really sort of like a socialist capitalism or something, it's a hybrid synergistic system, which is what I'm always promoting in every area. I really do believe that what we have to do if we're going to transcend the current cultural, spiritual, metaphysical, political morass, all of the different mind fuckeries that we find ourselves drowning in right now, syncretic approaches. So we're deriving new systems from capitalism and socialism and maybe even communism. There's aspects of all of these systems that justify their constituents' belief in them, or the people that believe in them. No one is entirely wrong about anything, and that is also powerful. That's something that people really need to try to take to heart a little bit more. The right wing has some things that they're right about, the left wing has some things that they're right about, the libertarians are right about some things, and if everyone is just objective and sets their ego aside, I don't think it's really that hard for intelligent people to sort of discern. I don't know if you guys were watching the talk that I just did about cognitive biases and how they're wrapped up in our survival instinct, and how they are layered. And it is very difficult to overcome these things. But the reality is that I know that there are people like me, there are other people like me that have much larger audiences and a lot more influence, that are aware of not only the fact that we have neurochemical tools, we have spiritual practices, and we have the understanding of psychology, that we actually could probably transcend and heal our culture and resolve a lot of the dissonance that we're experiencing on a global scale before it's too late even. Let me check in with the comments and see what we're. Nature loves courage. That's great. Uh, yeah, that's all. That's all, McKenna. I'm thinking setting the ego aside. Um, Not part of the NWO's agenda. Well, actually, it is part of the NWO's agenda, but it's not in that way. I think actually the ego dissolution and the way that a lot of people are taking it in what I loosely refer to as the spiritual community, people take it wrong. It doesn't mean that you become a completely passive. Um, I can't think of any non-offensive words for it. Too much mind fog with the COVID and whatnot to be that polite and articulate. But that's not what it means. I think that the idea that we need to retain our individuality as a sense of ego and to feel powerful, I think that there's a lot of spiritual propaganda out there. Some of it is just incidental, meaning that it's not propaganda in the sense that it's created by some government agency, but it is they're sort of like misconceptions that are encouraged by the collective. But we're getting way off subject. I wanted to talk about the original independence in the metaphysical sense and kind of compare it to the effects, speaking of ego, of institutionalized religion on this. So here is the concept, basically, and honestly, I'm talking about this tonight partially just so I can work on being able to articulate it, because it's a difficult thing. And it's something that's come to me in visions, and then I discovered that there are Gnostics that have written about it. Oh no, that's coffee. I thought it was tea. Okay, so in the beginning, there's nothing, and nothing becomes conscious, which some would say was a bad bargain. And this this awareness caused division, because as soon as you have two things, or as soon as you have an object and space, you have two things, and that's also the origin of paradox, right? That nothingness is the only possible unity, because as soon as you have a thing in space, you have two things. And so the great paradox and the origin of everything, this nothingness, the absolute is nothingness. And you know, if you look in Albert Pike, the 33rd degree Freemasons tome of Freemasonry, Morals and Dogma, he talks about this. He says, speaking from the point of view of God, the Phoenicians thought me light, but I am nothing. And Aleister Crowley, of course, you know, the Book of Lies is pretty much entirely based upon this idea of nothing and naught as the counterbalance that gives rise to and sustains and allows for the potential for manifestation of all things. And because of the structure and the laws of the universe, everything is always eternally sustained by its equal opposite, right? So we have equal parts and antinomies interacting. I don't know if that's antinimical. So this thought, this consciousness, this awareness is what broke the unity, and it caused the process that resulted ultimately in the materialization of matter out of nothingness by means of imposing order, which you could also think of as symmetry, upon the chaotic energy in the primordial stew that preceded creation, right? And consciousness is the organizing principle that gave that imposed order upon the chaotic energy. And this is also why, like, when you look at a face, humans, our minds, or whatever's behind our minds, perceives beauty in another human face based on symmetry. So in other words, the more symmetrical a person's face is, the more beautiful they are. And I think that what we're really seeing there is that beauty is a manifestation of symmetry, which is proof of divinity. And I say this a lot, that symmetry manifesting in all sorts of different systems is, in my mind, evidence that the universe is not blind, random materialization of just particles going apeshit out of nowhere. Especially because we have symmetry in both biological and even non-physical systems. Was that ISR at 31? I don't know what that is. Clayton is on fire. DMT is a reliable method for crossing into a dimension that human beings invaded. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's spewing McKenna here, mostly. So that's it, and I'm gonna try to wrap this up into the bullet point of this presentation is basically that the Lucifer myth, because this what gives rise to the consciousness that caused the division that was the original catalyst for the creation of the universe, is light. There are only two things in the universe: light and nothing, right? that isn't light. All matter is light in a standing wave. And so light is the source of consciousness. And so the light bearer, or is consciousness where light comes from, chicken or egg thing I haven't really decided on yet. But the light bearer, this is what Lucifer really means. So it's a reference to this light. And so the fairy tale in the beginning of the book of Genesis, what it's really saying is that consciousness is a demon. And I think that even if our conscious minds do not pick up on these subconscious messages, there's something in us that understands what is really being communicated. Because as Terrence McKenna and many others have suggested, like Timothy Leary said this, I've always kind of thought this, and now the 0 point field, there's some evidence in physics that this could be true. All exchanges of energy, everything that's ever happened is permanently recorded and accessible to our consciousness. And so these myths, one of the reasons they have so much power is because they are truth veiled in this sort of metaphor. But even if our conscious mind only perceives the outer veil, the mind or our soul being, whatever, our more holistic consciousness is actually processing the fullness of the metaphor and not just the cloak. By the way, we are demonetized, so we really do appreciate if you hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. I have started working on the Ritual Magic course. It's going to be great. It's a combination of Hermetic magic and shamanic practices. The first couple of videos on making tobacco for snorting through the nose I have finished, and then the first video is going to be the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, step by step. And so do support us, and we also have the PayPal and Zelle addresses, Cash App address, and a Binance Smart Chain crypto wallet. Let's take a quick diversion into crypto, by the way. Everyone is saying that the bull market is July. And basically, not financial advice. I have more in common with Aleister Crowley than Warren Buffett. But I will say that ADA Cardano is still going to explode. It really hurt us that it didn't do it as soon as everyone was expected. But I think that the likelihood that it will still explode maybe in July and continue until the end of the year. So I would still encourage you guys, if you have the means, to invest heavily in Cardano. There's still shit coins that are blowing up. We found $70 in BNB rolling around. Last time I checked, we put it into this mini Doge. It's now $487.69. So there's still good opportunities out there. Now I've lost my window for the. There's still a lot of good opportunities out there. And that's something I'm going to continue to cover. I've been really sick, so I haven't been making videos. But there's going to be a Chantakuru, California meets Amazon. Like, I made a wrap with different ingredients and these giant palm grubs that live here. So we accidentally posted it earlier with the wrong It was edited really badly. Thank you, man. So I took it down, but I'm only going to put it up on the Conscious Travel channel that we started. So if you haven't subscribed to the other channel, please do. You're going to be missing out. I'm up to 10 million views and 23,000 subscribers on TikTok in like a week and a half. Made no money, but we have licensed the video to viral log, so kind of irritates me, man. But okay, so anyways, what are we talking about? Please send me money. We really do appreciate the support, and we're about to move to an indigenous community, and we need money so that we can go over there and make more interesting content. Yeah, it's been tough since COVID, man, and it's not getting any easier, really. Although some of you guys have helped us, and I am eternally grateful, and hopefully some more of you guys will tip me a little bit tonight, because damn. And sorry if I'm a little bit rambly. I took some codeine because I've been sick for 2 weeks and I wanted a fucking break. So I'm a bit dopey at the moment. Did we get through the thing about, okay, so the demonization of consciousness, that was the real purpose of the myth in the Garden of Eden. That's literally what they were saying. And they still, there are other ways that is communicated. The eye and the triangle. If you know Hermetic magic or Pythagorean or the kind of Western occult tradition that the Masons practice, the geometries serve different purposes in rituals. So a circle is a protective barrier, right? So it represents the universe of the magician, and that which he wishes to inhabit his universe is invoked into the circle, and the perimeter of the circle is intended to keep everything that he doesn't want in his universe out of the circle. And so there's the triangle is where you invoke the demon, and the triangle is supposed to contain the demon so he can't get out. So on the back of the dollar bill, we have the famous eye in the triangle. Knowing that that is the symbolism, opens up a lot of questions as to what exactly they mean by putting that eye in that triangle. It implies that the awareness is demonic in general, or it could, and it also suggests that the god of this world is a demon, like the Gnostics suggested. So, the eye in the triangle is a very interesting symbol once you learn the rules of the magic that these people practice, that I practice. I mean, it's not evil. It's like any other tool. It's what you do with it, I mean, LSD can be used to liberate minds, but it can be used to completely erase people's minds and pre-program them. Yeah, there's going to be internet there. There's internet there. It's not that far out in the jungle. But man, we are excited about that. The river is like right next to the house. There's lots of gold, so we might be able to make some more income panning, which is of course a non-obtrusive way and non-polluting way to get gold. And there's just a lot more property. Here we're kind of like Ecuador, they just build like concrete, like everything's straight, like it looks like a prison yard in the front yard here. I mean, it's a fine place. There's nothing, it's just, but like aesthetically and the way that it makes you feel to be in these like squares of concrete with like big like metal gates around and like barbed wire. It's just, like you go outside tripping and it's like Armageddon looking, or like a post-apocalypse, so it will be good to get out there on the big farm. And so they fucking demonized consciousness, and with Christ as the alleged antidote to this Lucifer, which is consciousness, and he's literally calling his flock sheep. Like, it couldn't be more obvious what this is all about and what it's really designed to do. And so that is, the metaphysics of independence. And I think that is the level that we need to connect our concept of independence to, and forget about political parties and fuck Uncle Sam and the 4th of July is yeah, synaptic dampener, exactly, man. That's a really good way to put it. And like I said in the last one with the cognitive bias and the selective perception, I'll say it one more time just to emphasize the meaning of my rhyme, so we can try to add the right spice at the right time and rise above all the dirt and grime. Um, Man, I just heard a horrifying scream from somewhere. Um, okay, so I talked about this in the last live stream. I'll just mention it real quick again, but the Christians talking about how the evil Satanists are sacrificing innocent children, and that's like their metric for evil, you know. And this lady actually stopped her and said, "Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that was." Um, I stopped her and said, wait a minute. So you're saying that you define evil as like a person sacrificing their innocent child in order to appease a god, right? Yes, that's just the most evil thing I can imagine. You haven't read the New Testament, have you then? You know? Like, how can you define evil that way and then worship a god that did exactly that thing? And, you know, I'm very much a believer in the concept of a holographic mind. And so, when you create these imprints, they're repeated. You know, the universe is a mind in the same way. Once you establish these patterns, they repeat. That's what history is. People know that to an extent, but I don't think they realize how metaphysical it is, which isn't saying supernatural. It's not. It's just a manifestation of the natural laws. It is causality. It's how the universe works. It's really why history repeats itself. You know, this is something that Terence McKenna thought. This is something the Mayans recognized. That's the real truth about the cycles in their calendar. There are other cultures that understood this. That once these patterns are established in history, it's like a program. It's an energetic like template that is repeated over and over and over again. And once the patterns are established, just like addiction, you know, that's really what addiction is an establishment of these patterns. People, you can't stop repeating the patterns. Even if it's not an addiction, you have tendencies that might only, you know, repeat every year or something, but you'll find that you have these inclinations to repetitive behaviors on different scales and different magnitudes, ranging from addiction to even like I've noticed in my own life that there are definite 10-year cycles that, you know, when I turn 30, 31, it's 21, 31, 41 so far, you know, and I'm sure that if I could remember, 11 was probably a super significant one as well. By the way, you know, these 11/11 synchronicities are definitely a thing, and I'm understanding now why this idea of supersymmetry and symmetry in general as the one of the mechanisms. What is 217 about? 9, 16, 7. No, they're fine, man. I mean, if anything, if there was really a problem, they would have been down here. I gotta look at this again. Holy shit, dude! 452 now, man. That is crazy, you guys. If you got any B&B, throw it into mini Doge, dude. What the hell is going on? That is nuts. I mean, that was like no money at all. And the thing is, it doesn't really do us any good because we have no way to sell our crypto from here. But it's still like a good savings account, you know, like once we have a way to liquidate it, it's good to know that it's there. Yeah, well, you should look into that, man. Like, numbers are definitely a crazy, weird thing. I'll tell you something that happened to me that, you know, is really kind of crazy. You know, I talk about how I don't really use the, we're start talking about 11, there's 11 watching. I've mentioned this before, and I see a lot of people ask questions about it. You know, what does it mean when I see these strings of 3 numbers that are all the same, and it's always the same number when I'm thinking about certain things? So like 111 is apparently the number of truth and unity and love. In fact, in Hebrew, the numerical value for truth plus unity plus love equals tetragrammaton. So it's God. Truth plus unity plus love equals tetragrammaton, or the 4 elements. So, you know, it's an interesting thing, but it's something I noticed in I don't want to say the beginning of my awakening period, because there isn't really one. I've always been this. doing this, since I was a child. But when it really peaked, my friends and I all started noticing that we would be like collectively thinking about a certain subject, and we would notice it was exactly 333 or 111 or whatever. And maybe a month ago, I found a video of Maynard James Keenan from Tool from like 1992 or something, way before there was even really an internet, I think. Certainly before these ideas were really popular. And he was telling an interviewer at MTV that, like when college kids start eating mushrooms or doing spiritual practices, or people in their early stages of awakening, they'll notice that they see strings of the same number, like 111 or 333, when they're thinking about certain subjects, and it'll always align. And I just thought that was just really crazy for me, as a person that I experienced it before I started seeing it on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't use the internet in 2010, really. And then to see Maynard James Keenan talking about this weird, sort of, but very specific experience, and associating it with all of the same triggers and meaning, even though it should just be a delusion or even a manifestation of mental illness. Pretty wild. So I have this weird thing with Dakota Wint. I don't know him. I don't watch his videos really, but I kind of will check in with his titles and stuff every once in a while. And a little while back, I noticed that we had started putting out like the same videos within a few weeks of each other, more or less. And here's the craziest example, because it totally validates, I feel, both of our crazy ass stories that almost no one would believe. You know what I mean? So I had this experience where I met with these Native American tribal leaders from all different tribes all over the world. And their message was that there were star people, and they were here to teach us all of these different things about consciousness, and that the Native American tribes had been in touch with them for thousands of years and all this stuff. So I put this video out 2 years ago or something. And I've been talking about it forever, but and the aliens showed up, and that is an important part of the story. And it's not just me. Everyone that I talked to the night that it happened to me, the next day, every single person, people that were not connected in any way, didn't even know each other. The only common denominator was me, right? So it's not like they were talking, or they didn't even live close to each other. They lived like, all of them, like 10 miles apart or more. But everyone I ran into the day after we had our contact experience, right after these Native Americans told us that we would, and then the head of the secret society that I had joined at the time told us the night before they came that they were coming, which is still just blows my mind to pieces. So then everyone I ran into in Durango, Colorado, where it happened the next day, had seen them as well. So it was like this mass sighting all around the entire town. And so Dakota Wint, a couple weeks ago, puts out a video where he had gone to go talk to these Native Americans in Mexico. So they're totally disconnected from any of the tribes I talked to. Like, there was no one, well, let's see. There might have been like somebody that had Incan, so that might be Mexico. But they were Sioux. There was a Hawaiian shaman. There were, people with Mayan ancestry. But and the crazy thing about it is that all the details in Dakota's video match exactly the story that I told 2 years ago, even up to the claim by the people that have been around this tribe. Like all the white people that go to visit them claim to see the UFOs as well. So it's just crazy, because and also the message that the Native Americans have about the reason why the star tribes are here, and the people around the tribe saw the aliens as well. I mean, the stories are identical. So then today when I woke up, I was planning on doing a totally different live stream, and it's almost like silly that I reacted this way. But I saw my notifications that Dakota put out a video, so I looked at it, and I was going to do Healing Our Lineage as part of the move to independence, because in order to have great freedom, you must have great responsibility. This is something that I am struggling with at the moment, not so much because of irresponsibility, but because I have to adapt to a totally alien set of circumstances for me. You know, the ways that I used to make money are no longer accessible to me, and, you know, just a lot of things are being redefined. But, you know, I want to maintain my absolute freedom, my ability to wake up in the morning and decide what I do that day, every day, with every minute, every hour of every day. That is more or less, I think, should be an inalienable right for every sentient being, that you do what you're supposed to be doing, which is whatever your highest purpose is. And, you know, that's really what my whole philosophy and life is about. That's what I'm trying to communicate to people, both individually and collectively. And we have to be able to do this for ourselves, because the microcosm is manifest in the macrocosm. Like, when I'm talking about how the universe is created by a process of reflection, if we even look at cultural manifestations, we can see the truth of it. It's not really that you don't have to accept any woo at all. In fact, I am adamantly anti-woo, right? Like, I'm not. One of the only issues I have with Dakota is that he's a little bit more open to woo even than I am, and he's not that open to woo, you know. Did I say what it was though? I saw his video that he posted today. So after we both put out this weird ass alien Indian story, today I was gonna do Healing Our Lineage 1111, and I look, and he has this morning put a video out this healing. We can heal our ancestors 1111. It was almost exactly the same title. So it's like we've gone from similar stories to almost doing the same thing at the same time. And I don't think that really, you know, just for the record, has anything to do with Dakota Wint and I. It's a manifestation of the universal mind. And I think the more connected people are with that, the more it's like the same message is coming through more succinctly. That's, I mean, it could just totally be a coincidence. What do you mean it sounds idealistic? Oh, would aliens tell us to use psychedelics? Well, you know, if the DMT entities are real, I don't know what the Q that is based it means. But anyways, you know, if the DMT entities are real, you know, I mean, I don't know that they tell us to use psychedelics, but they certainly tell us what to do with the information that we get from them. But my experience was that the Star Tribes are encouraging us to use the entirety of our minds to establish the interregion communication that is. You like the Dead song "Eyes of the World"? Okay, well, I'll play it then. How about that? I guess I think the speaker's got some juice. Yeah, I'll play it. 9:46. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more, and then I'll play "Eyes of the World" and "Terrapin Station," and then we're done, because my throat's killing me. I'm sick as fuck. I know there's a bunch of new people tuned in, so please hit the like button, share, subscribe. We are demonetized, so we really appreciate your support. If you like the content and you want us to create more, and to continue to eat and stuff, because this is our sole source of income at the moment. There's PayPal and Zelle email addresses, Cash App, and Binance Smart Chain wallet. I'm sorry that I repeat that so much, but we have to get some revenue from these, and if I don't say something, it won't happen. So, thank you. Anyways, even if you can't support us, just for being here. What was I talking about though? It was hella trippy. There's something just about the unity of consciousness and what. Oh yeah, okay, I remember now. I was talking about how the universe is created through a reflective process that has its foundations in consciousness. And if you think about how whatever is in the being of the individual, the sum of that is what happens in the culture, the microcosm macrocosm manifestation. That's how it works. So I just wanted to mention that it's these universal laws are manifest in all systems, and this is part of the power of contemplating the one. When people talk about contemplating the one, and these gurus say these kind of like abstract sounding, obtuse sort of generalizations, it's partly because it's so difficult to articulate what exactly is meant. And even if you can articulate it, just telling somebody this shit doesn't really do it. They have to almost experience it in order for to derive any value from it, any meaningful value. Um, but that is what that means. Like, you watch the one thing doing one thing, and you will see the same processes and the same laws manifest in everything. And so, if you can really understand one system in the way that I just described, then you should be able to understand all systems. So, and that is where our independence really comes from. And that is why it's important to talk about this stuff. Because I don't know that I believe that utopia is even something that we should strive for. I don't think that it's the universe is an interplay of antinomies. It will always be that. And everything that is a metaphor. And so, darkness sustains and generates light. Evil sustains and generates good. Good sustains and generates evil. Like, you'll never get around that shit, but we can do better. And it is within the individual that the consciousness must be made holistic and brought into homeostasis. The subconscious and the conscious mind must create a dialogue. This is why I hate toxic positivity so much. When people just tune everything out that they detect even the slightest hint of darkness in, then that's not spiritual, that's not enlightenment, that's not productive, it's just toxic and dumb, and that's not what we're going for. But it does seem that the experience of gnosis influences people in such a way that they are able to take responsibility for themselves, to the extent that, like, if a person has had a significant experience of gnosis, they will not steal, they will not kill anyone that they don't have to kill. You know what I mean? Like, it changes you in a way that you don't need to be governed. And that is independence. Not a piece of paper claiming that we're not governed by some empire, that we're still... Oh, and by the way, just to bring this full circle before I play this Dead song. Man, I'm really congested now, though. The reason I didn't mention the reason why I would think that the Revolutionary War would have been a farce, and I think that it was way easier to just let them think that they had won a war than to actually fight it. You know what I mean? It's like they made some gesture of trying to fight, and then they just used operatives from the British government to set up the new United States government and continue sending the tax money back to the crown. That's what happened. I think it's painfully fucking obvious. Okay, so is the person that wanted me to play Eyes of the World still here? Because if not, I'll probably just play Terrapin Station, because that's what I said I was going to do. But if you're still here, was it Eugene B? Paging Eugene B? Or well, fuck it, I'll play two songs either way. But let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, almost there. I did find some pretty good tool backing tracks that I am going to use eventually. So keep your ears out for that. I did find some pretty good tool backing tracks that I am going to use eventually. Okay. Now I'm lost. Gosh, you guys, you know, and just in case consciousness really has a powerful impact on our reality, do will me to get well, because I've been sick for way too long. I'm really getting tired of it. Okay, so what is the first line? Right outside. Okay, I got it. Okay. Wow. Yeah, really, man. Hurts. The Cold War was a farce too. Yeah, that might be true. Okay. Is anybody still there? Looks like we're dropping. I mean, I was planning to play Terrapin, I guess. Are you still there, Fernando? Because if you're tripping, then you're probably the main target for this. together often go in hopes he will come back, but he cannot be born a soul. Well, I remembered the first 10 minutes of it, I guess. Jeez. How does that go right there? Inspiration. Okay. Move me brightly. Light the song with sense and color. Hold away despair. Knowing this I will not ask. Faced with mysteries dark and vast. Statements just seem faint at last. Sunrise, sunfall, sometime to get to Terrapin. Counting stars by candlelight. Some are dim, but one is bright. Spiral light of Venus, rising first and shining best. Oh, from the northwest corner of a brand new crescent moon. Crickets and cicadas sing. We're different tune, Terrapin Station. In the shadow of the moon, Terrapin Station. And I know it'll be there soon. I can't figure out. Terrapin is the end of it. But the train's put its brakes on. And the whistle is screaming Terrapin. Completely lost my voice, obviously. And I'm sick and exhausted, but thank you guys so much for entertaining me. Oh my god. Seriously, I'm going to die, so send me your healing energy, because I'm hella sick and I'm over it. But hopefully in the next couple of days, I'll get better, and then on the 6th, I'm going to do a full show with backing tracks and a working throat, and it's going to be amazing. So be there, be square. You guys have any questions or anything you want to talk about? because I could probably have a few more minutes. Okay, well, in that case, I guess, good night. Thank you, and hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon. Oh wait, what does it say? Thank you for entertaining us. Oh, so you guys are there. That's what's up. See, I can't see the chat again, so you might have been saying stuff, and yeah, oh, there it is. All right, you guys, good night.